The room was dimly lit, the walls adorned with ancient artifacts and strange alien relics. A soft hum filled the air, punctuated by the occasional click of a keyboard. In the center of it all, a human sat at a large, antique desk, fingers flying across the keyboard. They were a middle-aged man, balding and paunchy, with piercing green eyes that seemed to dance with intelligence. His name was Nathaniel Frost, and he was the military strategist tasked with defending the galactic frontier. Around him, a diverse group of aliens huddled in small clusters, deep in discussion. Some were tall and graceful, with translucent wings that stretched nearly the entire length of the room. Others were short and stocky, their armored carapaces reflecting the dim light. They were all here for the same reason, to offer their help in defending the frontier against the impending threat. Nathaniel glanced up from his work, his eyes meeting with those of a small, furry creature perched on the edge of his desk. It was a Xylo, known for its keen intelligence and ability to communicate telepathically. The Xylo's name was ZYR, and it had been Nathaniel's closest advisor since the beginning of his military career. The strategist smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie and determination welling up within him. "So, Nathaniel began, addressing the assembled aliens, it seems we have quite a challenge ahead of us. The enemy's forces are powerful, and their intentions are unclear. But one thing is certain, we must band together if we are to have any hope of repelling them." There was a murmur of agreement from the gathered aliens. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers beneath his chin. "I propose we form a coalition," he continued. "A united front, drawing on the unique strengths and abilities of each species represented here. Together, we can develop a defense strategy that will not only protect the frontier, but also cripple the enemy's forces and end this conflict once and for all." The room fell silent as the assembled aliens considered Nathaniel's proposal. It was a bold plan, one that required trust and cooperation between species that had been enemies for millennia. But there was something in the strategist's words, something in his tone and bearing, that made them believe he was the right man for the job. Slowly, one by one, the aliens nodded in agreement. The Xylo, ZYR, looked at Nathaniel with pride in its eyes. It was clear that the strategist had won over the room. As the coalition began to form, the fate of the galactic frontier hung in the balance. Would Nathaniel Frost's unconventional tactics and deep understanding of warfare be enough to save them? Or would the mysterious alien force prove too powerful to stop? Only time would tell. The first order of business was to gather intelligence on the enemy. Each species present volunteered its unique abilities and resources, from the speedy reconnaissance of the agile Viralian scouts to the stealthy infiltration of the elusive Coraxian spies. The room buzzed with activity as plans were laid out and strategies were discussed. Nathaniel Frost stood at the center of it all, his eyes darting from one alien to the next, taking in their suggestions and incorporating them into his overall strategy. He knew that each species had its own motivations and agendas, but for now, they were all united under a common goal. It was a fragile alliance, and he was determined to keep it strong. As the day wore on, the coalition began to take shape. A complex network of communication links was established, allowing the aliens to share information and coordinate their efforts in real time. The Viralians and their fleet of swift scout ships patrolled the outer edges of the frontier, while the Coraxians and their infiltration specialists worked tirelessly to gather intelligence on the enemy's movements and intentions. The atmosphere in the room shifted as the day turned to night. The soft glow of computer monitors and strategically placed lamps cast eerie shadows across the assembled aliens. They were all acutely aware that this might be the last time they saw the stars, the last time they felt the warmth of their home worlds. But despite the weight of the situation, there was also a sense of purpose, of determination, that could not be denied. Nathaniel Frost sat at his desk, lost in thought. He knew that the coming days and weeks would be the most crucial of his life. He glanced up at the holographic display above his desk, where a 3D map of the frontier rotated lazily. Red dots blinked on and off, marking the enemy's known positions. The fate of countless worlds hung in the balance, and the responsibility rested squarely on his shoulders. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and reached for the comms console. There was still much work to be done, and he couldn't afford to lose focus now. He said, his voice steady and calm. Please inform the aliens that we'll be moving into Phase 2 of the operation. Let's see if we can't catch the enemy off guard. The Xylo nodded, its furry features contorting into a reassuring smile. Yes, Nathaniel. I'll pass the word along immediately. As the Xylo scurried off to deliver the news, Nathaniel Frost couldn't help but wonder if they'd be too late. But for now, he had work to do. He turned back to his desk, fingers poised over the keyboard, ready to wage war. The next few hours were a blur of activity as the Coalition executed Phase 2 of the operation. Viralian scout ships zipped through the darkness, their sleek hulls leaving trails of hyperspace static in their wake. Quaraxian spies slipped past enemy lines, their cloaking devices rendering them all but invisible. The atmosphere in the command center was tense, but focused. Everyone knew that one mistake could mean the difference between victory and annihilation. Nathaniel Frost monitored the situation from his desk, his mind racing as he tried to anticipate the enemy's next move. He glanced up at the holographic display, where the red dots marking enemy positions continued to flash and move. It was a chilling sight, but it also served as a reminder of just how far they'd come, and how much they'd already achieved. Suddenly, a high-pitched alarm blared through the room. Everyone froze, their hearts pounding in their chests. On the display, a single red dot began to pulse rapidly, signaling that the enemy had detected their presence. Nathaniel Frost's heart sank. They'd been found. He keyed in a command on his keyboard, and the room fell silent except for the soft hum of the computers. All units, he said, his voice calm and steady, prepare for engagement. The enemy knows we're here, but that doesn't mean we're going down without a fight. The Xylo nodded grimly, its fur bristling. Aye, Captain. We'll give them a fight they'll never forget. Nathaniel Frost smiled grimly. Good. Now let's go kick some alien ass. The room erupted into a flurry of activity as the Coalition sprang into action. The Viralian scout ships peeled off in different directions, preparing to engage the enemy on multiple fronts. The Quaraxian spies fanned out, planting sabotage devices and sowing chaos behind enemy lines. And Nathaniel Frost, his heart racing with adrenaline, barked out orders over the comms system, coordinating the Coalition's efforts with precision and skill. The battle raged for hours, with neither side gaining a clear advantage. But as the sun began to rise on the distant horizon, something shifted in the air. The enemy's defenses began to crumble, their red dots winking out one by one. Sensing his unease, it was a sign of reassuring paw on his shoulder. But Nathaniel Frost knew better than to celebrate too soon. Nathaniel, it said, they still had a long, dangerous road ahead of them. Together, we can save our worlds. Nathaniel Frost looked deep into the Xylo's eyes and nodded. Together, he echoed. We'll save them together. And with that, he turned back to his desk, determined to lead the Coalition to victory, no matter the cost. As the battle raged on, they received word that the enemy's flagship had been spotted approaching their position. It was a massive vessel, dwarfing everything in its path. The air was electric with anticipation and fear. "Captain," the tactical officer said, her voice trembling, "We've got reports that the enemy flagship is armed with a doomsday weapon. If we don't stop it, it'll mean the end for both of our worlds." Nathaniel Frost took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Understood. "We'll need to split our forces. Half of us will engage the flagship head-on, while the other half tries to sneak aboard and disable the weapon." He keyed in a series of commands, sending out the orders to his troops. "Let's do this," he said, his voice steady and strong. "For our homes, for our people, we cannot fail." The Xylo nodded in agreement. "Aye, Captain. We'll give them a fight they'll never forget." The room fell silent as they prepared for the final showdown. The Viralian scout ships formed a tight formation around the flagship, their weapons blazing. The Quaraxian spies raced toward the massive vessel, their cloaking devices straining to maintain their invisibility. Nathaniel Frost watched the battle unfold on his holographic display, his heart in his throat. He couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and awe at the courage and determination of his crew. They were truly something special, something to be cherished. Even if they didn't make it out alive, their sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. They would have saved their worlds, and for that, they would be remembered forever. The flagship exploded in a blinding flash of light, and for a moment, everything was silent. But then, cheers erupted throughout the command center as they realized they had won. The enemy had been defeated, their doomsday weapon destroyed. Nathaniel Frost let out a long, shuddering breath, relief washing over him like a warm blanket. He turned to the Xylo, and they shared a look that needed no words. They had done it. They had saved their worlds. But at the same time, they both knew that the struggle was far from over. There would be rebuilding to do, healing to be had, and a new future to forge. But for now, they could take a moment to savor their hard-fought victory, and celebrate the courage and resilience of those who had fought beside them. As the celebrations raged on, Nathaniel Frost found himself thinking about the journey they had all been through, the friends they had lost, and the lessons they had learned. He knew that they would never forget the sacrifices that had been made, and that they would never let their guard down again. For better or worse, they had changed irrevocably, and they would carry that change with them as they faced the uncertain future that lay ahead. But for now, they could dance, they could drink, and they could laugh, for they had earned it, and they had earned each other. And as the night wore on, Nathaniel Frost knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, as one. Because in the end, that was what it meant to be a part of something greater than yourself, something worth fighting for. And in that moment, as they stood on the threshold of a new beginning, he couldn't help but feel a sense of hope and possibility that had been missing for so long.